All right. Hey, Tellor community. Today is October 20th, 2020. Today is not a community call, so we didn't really have that full list of questions like usual. But it should still be a good one. Going to talk a lot about Tellor governance and kind of governance in general. So hopefully it's a good little discussion. Hopefully it's a shorter one too. But feel free to ask any questions along the way. First things as far as kind of just announcements go, I'd say the big one right now, as you guys know, this one is about governance. We have a vote that's open, Tellor v 2.5. So last week we kind of went over Tellor v 2.5. I'm going to show you on this call how to go vote with your MetaMask. And we really just want to see a strong kind of community showing. So in addition to the fact that we need you guys to get it through. So that's probably the biggest thing that's really on everyone's plate right at the moment. Other little pieces. So I did 2 talks last week. I think we pushed some of them out. I don't know if we pushed them both out yet. Have we pushed them both out? I don't know. We'll ask Mike, but I did one at Liquidity 2020. It was a great event all about liquidity. And I gave a talk about the pros and cons of liquidity targeting. I thought it was a really good one. I put together a talk for that one. So that one was good. And then I also gave one ETH Online. So we did an ETH Online talk, kind of talking about the Oracle landscape in DeFi and some of the centralization concerns. That one was at 4:30 last Friday through the ETH Online platform. That one also ran really, really well. So 2 talks I gave. We'll definitely post the links for you guys to listen to. I think I'm doing another Oracle. I'm doing a panel on oracles this Friday. So we can push that one out to you guys too. But yeah, we're definitely staying busy. It's really nice. People are like reaching out to us I think Brenda's doing an Oracle panel as well. So we're staying busy, which is always really good. We also, so later this week, we're going to have a release on the miner. So if you are a miner, we're really revamping things now. So we're actually going to be introducing you guys to a new employee next week. He's kind of the last hire of our little hiring round. Obviously, we're always open to, kind of open source collaboration, but this was kind of a dedicated effort to actually go out and hire somebody. And we found him. So we'll be introducing him to you guys next week at this time. So stay tuned. But anyway, there's a lot of work getting done on the miner. New release coming. That one should look really, really pretty. We'll also be sending out if you're a miner or a developer, or if you're just a holder and you want to voice your opinion, we're going to be sending out a survey later this week. The survey is just going to go over what should we be working on. It's going to be, there will be some multiple choice questions. There will be some kind of short answer, long answer questions. We have development resources, and we obviously, I know for myself, I have more ideas than I have time to do, but where does the community think we should be putting our time? Should it be on more front end, more design work, more documentation? Should it be really just working on making Tellor the protocol better? Should it be making the miner better? Where do you guys think we should be putting our resources? We'd love to just kind of hear from you guys, since you're ultimately the users and the people that make Tellor churn. Okay. I think that's about it for announcements. Yeah, not a whole lot. So it's not quite as busy as last week, which is good. But now to kind of go into voting. Okay, so for voting, I'm going to share my screen, and then we can go and vote. Okay. So I actually already voted. So either way, I'm going to walk you through it. Hopefully If you guys cannot see my screen, tell me in the chat that you can't see my screen. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you can see my screen. This is just on the disputes center. So disputes.tellorscan.com. And then you can click up here. This is the /Tellor upgrade where it says Tellor v2.5. You can come. Somebody has a chat. Awesome. And so you guys can click here and go see the full proposal. So if you guys haven't gone and read this yet, this is the new Tellor improvement proposal website. And there's also Tellor v2.5 proposal. And it has all of the what's going on. It has a link to the repo with the code and everything that's changing. But what we want you guys to do is come and click vote. Wait, it's not going to work because you guys aren't going to be able to see my screen. I just shared a specific screen. Wait, hold up, I'm going to stop sharing. Share screen, sharing my whole one now. Beautiful. Okay. So now, let me know if you guys can actually see my MetaMask pop up. So what's going to happen is, oh, never mind. It won't pop up anyway. But it's going to look at your wallet and how much TRB you have. I got some TRB in this one. And then you're going to click support or challenge. And then it'll pop up MetaMask and you'll just click submit. If you support it, which we want you guys to do, go click support and then it'll pop up. And that's as easy as it is. It should be, if you guys have seen, gas is cheap. It's like, it's dirt cheap. So go vote now. So the big thing, now I'm going to kind of talk about Tellor's current governance system and why we actually have, voting and what that actually means. So this is actually the v2.5 contracts that I'm looking at, but it doesn't matter because we didn't change anything in the disputes. But the way that Tellor disputes and proposing a fork goes, whether you propose a fork or begin a dispute, you get a dispute ID in the system. It's the same. So whenever you get a dispute ID, it actually, if you know about Tellor balances keep track of your specific balance at every single Ethereum block that you transfer. So your vote actually is based upon your Tellor balance at the time that the dispute is initiated, or in this case, the fork. So I'll just kind of walk you through some of the code for proposing a fork. Because a lot of people have been like, hey, I'm going to transfer my tokens out of my centralized exchange into my MetaMask and then vote. And that actually won't work. You don't want to do that. And the reason is that the vote is based upon your balance at the time that the fork is initiated. So I think we could have done a whole lot better as far as explaining this to people beforehand. But you can't then transfer it out of the centralized exchange and then vote. And the reason should be pretty obvious. We don't want you to vote, transfer your tokens to another address, and then vote with that address as well. So it's sort of Sybil attacking your own system. So you wanted to prevent that. And so you just take a snapshot at a given block. And then that's when everything's happened. Okay. So whenever you propose a fork, so we've been over kind of this structure here. Whenever we're looking at the code, all of this it's basically very similar to the other. So beginning a dispute, and this has to do with, if there's dispute rounds. So meaning if you propose a fork and it fails, you can actually sort of submit a dispute on the dispute, which hopefully we don't have to do. But I don't know if you would even necessarily want to do, but either way. Well, you could do it because then it would double the voting period. Okay. So the way that proposing a fork works is you actually have to burn 100 tokens. So we did this whenever we proposed a fork. The reason that you have to burn 100 tokens is that we don't want people proposing lots of forks. It shouldn't be something that happens all the time. It should be very expensive. It should be something that is not sort of done lightly, because you need people to vote on it, and need people to look over code. So you have to burn 100 TRB. If you want to spam us and just continuously burn 100 TRB, I guess holders will be very grateful to you. For voting, all you need is a new Tellor address. So the Tellor addresses are, since we use a proxy contract, we have the master contract over here, which has all the storage, and then it reads all the Tellor functions over here. Whenever we upgrade the contracts, you basically just change this address to something different. So now all of the functions change. We used to just manually handle whenever we would upgrade, say from Tellor 1 to Tellor 2, we had an admin key and we would just switch them. And that's great, but the problem is that then it's completely centralized. So if you guys remember, a few weeks ago, we got rid of that. And now we have to do everything through a vote, which is good because you could update any function you want and steal everyone's coins. So that's like the bad part of admin keys. And then down here, this is the parts that you have to pay attention to. We save the block number, and the vote for proposing a fork is 7 days. One link. Whenever we run a vote, so the way that voting works, whether it's on a dispute or on the new forks, is it just looks at your balance of at. So this is your balance at a given block number. And then you have to say the dispute ID and whether or not you support the dispute. The dispute ID, so for this fork proposal, it would be ID 53. So the front end automatically takes care of that for you. But other things, so whenever you're voting, so you can't be a minor under dispute. That's a rule. You have to have a balance greater than 0, and you can only vote once. Pretty simple stuff. So we keep track of your number of votes, and then we have this tally. We have our intern tally, and we keep a dispute tally. So then whenever we go and we tally the votes, there's a few things that need to happen before we actually tally the votes. It has to be past the minimum execution date, so that's 7 days past. All right, I was freezing there for a second. All right, so yeah, so we would have to go past that minimum execution date. So this is not equal to address 0. So this is just making sure that the dispute ID actually exists. And then what we do whenever if the dispute is a prop fork. So this means, is it a proposed fork? What we do is we take the total supply, and then we need 10% of it. So meaning that the tally actually has to be greater than 10% of the total supply. And this is actually where we need your guys' help to hit. So the tally meaning plus or minus, if you support it, you add to the tally. If you don't support it, you subtract from the tally. You need that tally to be greater than 10% of the total supply. We're not there yet. The team does not have enough tokens to push that through. We only hold about 5%. So we actually need your guys' help to push us over that 10% threshold, and we're not there yet. So this is very important. And the reason we put that in, a lot of a lot of people, you know, we had debated whether or not we wanted to put that in. Some of the reasons include you don't want people to just be able to propose a fork and sort of hope nobody sees it and it passes. That would be really, really bad. And that has like almost happened on several other chains. It almost happened like with Ethereum. They like had, you know, they've had several times where people have like tried to push things through and like they just never had any discussion on it. They just started pushing things. A developer liked it, so he started pushing it through, and there was never any discussion, and it made it really, really close to being deployed. And other systems have had that problem too. This way, if we change the system, it's because a whole lot of people want the system to change, and that's what we want it to be. You know, these cryptocurrency networks in general. You have like the ultimate extreme unchanging of Bitcoin where nothing ever changes. And then you have current, you know, these centrally managed ones where things change all the time. And you want to balance it. You don't want things to change too much or else people don't know what they can expect and they don't know who to trust. But yeah, that's about it for the vote. Obviously, once it tally votes, you'll see that nothing actually changed. So we'll be able to tally these Friday night at midnight, or I guess a day after. So like I think Friday night or maybe Saturday morning. I'd have to check the exact time. But you'll see that the address doesn't change, and where it changes is in update Tellor. So similar to with this unlock dispute fee, even after a dispute is finished, you can't like withdraw the dispute fee or transfer it away from transfer this / the miner right away. You need to actually wait a day. And the day waiting period is anybody can dispute the results of that dispute or of that fork. And there's actually infinite sort of disputes that can happen on top of it. So with the Tellor dispute, if you vote to slash the miner, if he feels like it was a bad vote and he shouldn't have been slashed, he can dispute that dispute. And then it goes off to another voting period. And in the same way, let's say somebody passes a fork that we don't want through, we can dispute the passing of the fork and it would go to another voting period. And this is sort of necessary because, like, let's say somebody does buy 10% of the tokens and then is trying to push a fork through, even then they couldn't do it because we would obviously dispute that result and then hopefully get more and more people with each dispute round to come and vote on our behalf and push these people away and sort of maintain the integrity of the system. And I think the same idea holds for the dispute IDs. Like even if somebody's trying to push a bad value through on Tellor, we would just keep disputing them and hope that more and more people rally to our cause and we have more time to sort of get that help available for the votes. So that is kind of Tellor governance currently. You know, it's a relatively simple token weighted voting system. I can stop sharing my screen now. Any questions so far on how it actually works right now? If not, we can kind of just have a little bit of a chat on kind of the current system and where it falls short, because so as some of you are noticing with this vote, so it's kind of hard to hit the quorum, and the reason is it's not even, there's a whole lot of reasons that people don't usually vote in these token governance systems. I'd say, like, you know, the first is just that on Ethereum you have gas fees. So for those of you who voted, I don't know, anybody remember how much they actually paid in a fee? You know, mine was relatively cheaper, so I paid like $2 to vote. It's not awful, but it's not ideal anytime you have to do these on-chain things. Second off, so a lot of people didn't quite understand that once we proposed the fork, it was a snapshot at that block, and that's your balance for the vote. A lot of people, as I had kind of hinted at earlier, said like, hey, mine's on an exchange, I'll pull it off. Well, you can't then. I think we should just be telling people don't keep your tokens on an exchange. That's kind of just best practices in general. But people do keep tokens on exchanges. Lots of good supporters keep tokens on exchanges. Also, people keep tokens in smart contracts. So as TRB sort of continues to get used, so I know we have some people who they're like, say, a miner, and they have their tokens in a Chai gas token contract. It doesn't have the ability to vote, or they haven't sort of given it the ability to vote. So now you have a problem where even though they hold a significant amount of TRB, they're unable to vote. And that's not good. You know, you can even assume like in the future, if Tellor is, say, like in some lending pool or something like that, unless they specifically give that contract the ability to vote, it's probably not going to vote. And that's kind of a problem across the board. So it's not just a problem with Tellor. I'm sure, as most of you know, token governance is really hard. Governance in general is really hard. So as you know, we're 2 weeks away from the election here in the US. Nobody would say that governance is easy. And really, whenever we were designing our governance system, a lot of it had to do with the fact that this is a big part of our protocol, but it is not the core thesis of our protocol. We're not Aragon or some governance protocol. Our view had always sort of stemmed from the fact that if you have a community of people that are trying to do something and they're trying to make something great, it doesn't necessarily matter what your governance system is, it's going to work. In the same way, if you have a system of people who don't care, and you have a community of people who don't want to vote, your token system does not matter. So I think focusing more on the community has always been our goal, and that's where I think we're going to kind of continue in the future. But for designs, I should have moved so I could have shown the whiteboard. But so we want to make it better for people. What are some ways that we could possibly make this better? I can just kind of take you guys through the gamut of token governance decisions and why we chose the way that we did. So the first is, how do you get more people to vote? So if we get 10% of our community to vote, of the token holders, that's actually a huge amount. So believe it or not, most protocols don't get 10%. Most protocols get something very, very, and if they do get 10%, it's usually because like the team holds 50% of the tokens. So it doesn't really count. What you want is, how do you get your community more engaged? How do you get a community to vote? And the first solution is to pay them. You can always just say, hey, if you vote with your token, you get some inflationary reward, and that can work. One of the downfall to this method, and so the other sort of inverse to this would also be penalizing people who don't vote. So you could have this fork proposal. If you don't vote, we slash whatever balance you have by 10%. This is like a very auger method. It's like the auger method for getting people to vote, and you can do this. This is one that can also work. So whether you're paying people or punishing, it's like two sides of the same coin. The big problem whenever you do those is then people are incentivized to give their opinion when they don't care. People have run studies where if you have voting and you pay them, people will just always vote true, for instance. Like they don't actually care or want to look at it. They're just always going to vote true to get their reward, because you're not actually paying them to be correct. You're paying them for their opinion. And that's that's not something that you want to do. Same with like a V2.5 design. Like, we want you guys to vote it through, but we also want you guys to know what's going on. If we pushed through some awful censorship resistant or non-censorship resistant update where, let's increase the dev share to 99%. We hope you guys we couldn't talk you guys into that, and you guys would vote it down. So you want sort of educated people making educated decisions. And you don't want everyone sort of voicing their opinion just because you're paying them to. So that's kind of why we went with not paying people. So the next solution that you can use, which really helps with like exchanges or some other things, is like delegates. So some people have automatically delegated coins. So basically everybody's coins. So like I could just put in where like I get control of all of your coins, unless you want to vote on behalf of your coins. If you want to vote on behalf of your coins and go against what I say, by all means, go for it. If not, your coins are delegated to me. This can sort of work. I mean, it gives sort of the team way more control. But the obvious downside here is that it's likely just going to be completely centralized. Are you actually building a community, or do you just want kind of the facade of a community? I think the same goes with delegates in general. How much delegates work goes back to the same problem of voting in general, to where if you're actually choosing good delegates and thinking about who your delegate is, there's a good chance you may have or may not just want to vote, period. Like that's like kind of a problem in traditional government as well. Like we can all just sort of vote on, if we all actually thought about who our representatives were a little bit better, it might work. And we would also have to have a system, hopefully we're not really relying on delegates for much. We just have like very infrequent forks and upgrades. So having delegates isn't really something that fits with what Tellor would want to do. In my mind, delegates is something that you would want. Like if you have a vote that happens, multiple times a week or daily, then you want delegates, because you don't want people to have to do it all the time. Not really in Tellor's case, though. In Tellor's case, it's more of like the presidential election type thing where we're doing a once-a-year upgrade. So please, everybody, just educate yourself and vote on it. Other solutions that are coming about. So if you guys have seen Snapshot, so Aragon has sort of moved to this as well. So you could do optimistic voting. Basically, you just have like off-chain voting, and you can like have sign where you would still have like signing with the balances and things like that, but then everybody can vote without paying the gas fees. This one I actually really like. I think I would be open to putting this in some future contracts, because then you could sort of have a lot of people vote off chain and then submit the result on chain, and as long as nobody was lying, or nobody withheld any information, then it should work just fine. So optimistic voting, very cool. I think there's a future there. So where do I think Tellor will go in the future? I don't know. We're still actively trying to figure out the best governance system for Tellor. We want to focus more on community building, and if we can actually just build a community of people who are coming to community calls and things like that, which system we ultimately choose won't necessarily matter. But if we do decide to sort of make a change, we're kind of going with where the space is on thinking. We're not kind of pioneers in governance. There's a whole lot of people trying to work on this very hard problem. So I don't think there's a good answer. I don't think there will ever be a good answer. I think I would rather see a bunch of smaller communities who are building really close-knit things rather than giant systems that have governance that sort of needs to be really abstracted. I like that whenever you guys are voting, you're telling us on Telegram, and I know over half of the people who have voted already, and that's super cool. That's the kind of system where it's close. So anyway, so that is Tellor governance in a nutshell. I wish I had something better for you guys on where we're going to go. I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of ideas, and we're open to a lot of them on the governance side, but we're still just playing around with getting V2.5 fast, and then in my mind, what we'll probably move to in say V3 or something like that is having maybe optimistic voting, and then maybe having some way to delegate some things, say if you want to throw them on an exchange or something like that. You just really want to make sure that you don't have really strong figureheads at the top of your coin, because it can sort of ruin any sort of image you have. So thanks everyone for listening. Questions, comments, feel free. You guys can obviously reach out to me on Telegram or anytime. So thanks for joining. Talk to you guys later. Bye.